The kitchen clock read 2:47 a.m. when I heard Tessa's BMW purr into our driveway. I'd been sitting in the dark for 3 hours, nursing a beer that had gone warm around midnight, waiting for my wife to return from her latest content creation trip. That's what she called it when she needed to disappear for days at a time to work on her lifestyle blog. Funny how her content trips always seem to coincide with Logan Crouse's gym schedule. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I'm Owen Whitman, and I build things for a living. Houses, mostly. I'm good with my hands, good with details, and really good at noticing when things don't add up. Like how Tessa's phone always seemed to die right before she explained where she'd been. Or how our joint credit card showed charges at the Marriott downtown, the same downtown where Logan ran his fitness empire and posted shirtless selfies for desperate housewives. The front door creaked open. Tessa tried to slip in quietly, but our hardwood floors had other plans. Each step announced her arrival like a guilty conscience. Owen? Her voice carried that fake sweetness she used when she knew she was caught. What are you doing up, honey? I flicked on the kitchen light. She stood there in her designer athleisure wear, the kind that cost more than most people's mortgage payments, looking like she'd been caught stealing from the church collection plate. Couldn't sleep, I said, setting down my beer. Funny thing happened today. Your phone charger stopped working. She pulled out her iPhone, frowning at the black screen. That's weird. It was working fine this morning. Yeah, weird. I'd swapped her charger for a non-working one I kept in my workshop. Amazing how a simple cable swap could create such convenient timing. Where'd you say you were again? I told you, the content retreat in Springfield. We worked on brand partnerships all day. She moved toward the counter where she kept her backup charger, but found only empty space. I'd hidden that one too. Springfield, right. That's interesting because I called the Hilton Springfield today. They said they never had a booking under your name. Tessa's face went through several expressions: surprise, annoyance, then that calculating look she got when she was preparing to lie. It wasn't under my name. Maddie booked it for the group. Maddie Brennan, her social media manager and partner in whatever scheme they were running. The woman who'd turned my wife into an influencer and taught her that marriage was just another brand partnership to be optimized. Of course she did. I stood up, walked to the sink, and rinsed out my beer bottle. Well, I'm sure you're tired from all that content creating. Better get some rest. Big day tomorrow. What's tomorrow? I smiled, but there wasn't any warmth in it. You'll see, when I plan you in. That was her favorite phrase. See me when I plan you in. She'd say it when I asked about dinner, about weekend plans, about anything that might interfere with her precious schedule. Well, her schedule was about to get a major revision. She headed upstairs, and I heard her trying different outlets, looking for a working charger. I'd removed them all. Let her wonder why her lifeline to Logan had suddenly gone. I opened my laptop and logged into our shared cloud storage. Tessa wasn't tech-savvy enough to know that every photo she took automatically backed up to our family account. I scrolled through the images from her retreat. There she was at the Marriott downtown, not Springfield. There she was at Logan's gym after hours. And there, in the reflection of a mirror behind her as she posed for a selfie, was Logan himself. Shirtless, naturally, with his arms around my wife. I screenshot everything and saved the files to a folder labeled Schedule Changes. Then I did something I'd been putting off for months. I opened our joint banking app and started making some adjustments. Tessa's credit cards, her car lease, her business expenses, all of it flowed through accounts I'd set up and managed. She'd never bothered learning about money. That was Owen's job. Well, Owen was about to get very good at his job. By 4 a.m., I'd canceled her premium gym membership, her business credit cards, and scheduled our joint checking account to be converted to individual accounts. I'd also done something else. I'd transferred the maximum daily limit to a new account in my name only. Tessa would wake up to find her financial lifeline completely useless, just like her phone charger. I heard her moving around upstairs, probably still hunting for a way to charge her phone and text Logan about her narrow escape. She had no idea that her narrow escape was actually a wide-open trap. My phone buzzed. A text from Frank Morrison, my crew foreman and the closest thing I had to a best friend. Early meeting tomorrow. Got some news about that gym owner you mentioned. Frank had been in construction for 30 years. He knew everyone, heard everything, and had a network of contacts that would make the FBI jealous. If there was dirt on Logan Crouse, Frank would find it. I texted back, "What kind of news?" "The kind that might interest a guy whose wife likes fitness influencers. Meet me at the Last Nail at 7. The Last Nail was our usual bar, a dive that served construction workers and blue-collar guys who didn't care about craft cocktails or Instagram-worthy lighting. It was the opposite of everything Tessa's world represented, which made it the perfect place to plan her downfall. I closed the laptop and headed upstairs. Tessa was in bed, her non-working phone on the nightstand, staring at the ceiling. She looked over when I entered. "Owen, we should talk." "About what?" "About us. About things." I got into bed, keeping to my side. "What things?" "I feel like we're growing apart, like we want different things." "You're right," I said, turning off the bedside lamp. "We do want different things. You want to see me when you plan me in. I want to see you never again." She was quiet for a long moment. What's that supposed to mean? But I was already pretending to be asleep. Let her wonder. Let her worry. Tomorrow she'd start learning what it felt like to have her schedule canceled. The Last Nail smelled like sawdust, stale beer, and honest work. I arrived at 7 sharp to find Frank already holding court at our usual table, surrounded by 3 guys from different crews. Word traveled fast in the construction community, especially when it involved someone's wife stepping out. "Owen!" Frank waved me over. He was 55, built like a brick wall, and had the kind of face that had seen everything twice. "Boys, you remember Owen Whitman, the guy with the influencer wife?" The way he said influencer made it sound like a social disease. "Frank." I grabbed a chair and signaled the bartender for a beer. "You said you had news." "Oh, I got news all right." Frank leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Your boy, Logan Crouse, the fitness guru with the fancy gym, turns out he's not as successful as his Instagram makes him look." Mike Torino, who ran electrical work for half the developments in town, chimed in. "My cousin does books for small businesses. Says Logan's 3 months behind on his lease payments." "Gets better," added Danny Walsh from Walsh Plumbing. "My brother-in-law works for the bank. Logan's been juggling credit cards to keep the lights on. Apparently all that equipment he posts about, most of it's leased, and he's behind on those payments too." Frank smiled like a shark. "And here's the kicker. His business license is up for renewal next month. Guess what happens when you're behind on your commercial lease and the city finds out?" I took a long sip of my beer, processing this information. How behind are we talking? 15 grand minimum, probably more. Frank's smile widened. Seems like all those protein shakes and selfies don't pay the bills. So what's his play? Why's he messing around with married women if he can't afford his own life? "Same reason dogs chase cars," Danny said. "He's hoping to catch something that'll solve his problems. Your wife's got money, right? That influencer thing pays?" I almost laughed. "Tessa's business loses money every month. The only reason she can afford her lifestyle is because I pay for everything. Her brand partnerships cover maybe 20% of what she spends." The table went quiet. These were all married men who understood the economics of family life. They knew what it meant when one spouse carried the financial load while the other played pretend entrepreneur. "So Logan thinks he's trading up to a sugar mama, but really he's just jumping from one sinking ship to another?" Mike asked. "Something like that." I finished my beer and stood up. Thanks for the information, guys. Really helpful. Owen, Frank called as I headed for the door. You need any help with home improvements? You let me know. I know guys who specialize in demolition. I appreciated the offer, but I had my own plans. Plans that would be completely legal, totally devastating, and absolutely permanent. My phone rang as I got to my truck, Tessa's name on the screen. Owen, where are you? I need to talk to you. I'm out. What do you need? My cards aren't working. I tried to get coffee this morning and my Amex was declined. Then I tried the Visa, same thing. The bank says there's a problem with our accounts. I started the engine, letting it idle while I talked. What kind of problem? They said you'd have to call them. Something about account restructuring. Owen, what's going on? I'm taking care of our finances like I always do. But I can't buy anything, I can't even get gas. Sounds like a scheduling problem. Maybe you should plan better. This isn't funny. I have a meeting with a potential sponsor this afternoon. I need access to money. For what? For business expenses. Lunch, parking, basic things. What sponsor? Silence. Then, a fitness company. They're interested in partnering with my wellness content. I almost laughed out loud. Logan had probably set up some fake meeting to string her along, make her think she was building a business while he figured out how to access her money. Too bad for both of them that her money was actually my money, and I'd just cut off the supply. Tessa, here's what's going to happen. I'm restructuring our finances to better reflect our actual contributions to this marriage. Your business expenses will be covered by your business income. My income will cover my expenses. You can't do that. We're married. It's community property. Actually, I can do that. I've been doing it since 4 this morning. You want access to money? Earn it. I hung up and drove to the job site. We were framing a new development and I had work to do. Real work. The kind that actually paid bills and built futures. Not the pretend work of posing for photos and shilling products to lonely housewives. My crew was already busy when I arrived. Frank looked up from his clipboard and grinned. How'd the wife take the news about her credit cards? About as well as you'd expect. I grabbed my tool belt and hard hat. She's got a meeting with a fitness sponsor this afternoon. Let me guess. At Logan's gym. Probably. Frank's expression turned serious. Owen, you sure about this approach? Cutting off her money, I mean. Some women get desperate when their lifestyle gets threatened. Frank, my wife stopped being my wife the moment she started scheduling me like a dentist appointment. Now she's just a roommate who happens to be sleeping with someone else, and roommates pay their own bills. We worked until lunch, then Frank and I grabbed sandwiches from the truck that came by the site. As we ate, Frank brought up something I hadn't considered. You know, if Logan's as broke as we think he is, and your wife's money just got cut off, they're going to get desperate pretty quick. What do you mean? Desperate people do stupid things. They might try to force your hand somehow, make you look like the bad guy so she can claim victim status and get sympathy money. I thought about that. Tessa's whole brand was built around being aspirational, the perfect wife, the successful entrepreneur, the woman who had it all. If word got out that her marriage was falling apart and her finances were a mess, her credibility would evaporate. They'd have to be pretty stupid to try something like that. Frank raised an eyebrow. You met Logan yet? Not officially. Trust me, stupid is his specialty. Guys all muscle and no brains. And your wife, well, she's been living in Instagram fantasy land for so long, she might not understand how real-world consequences work. My phone buzzed with a text from Tessa. Owen, please, we need to talk. This is serious. I showed Frank the message. He shook his head. It's about to get more serious. You better be ready for whatever they throw at you. I deleted the text without responding. Tessa was about to learn that her schedule had been permanently canceled, and there were no makeup appointments available. 3 days later, Tessa was scheduled to appear at a local wellness festival. One of those events where influencers hawked supplements and yoga pants to suburban women looking for meaning in their lives. She'd been promoting it for weeks on her social media, promising exclusive discounts from her brand partners. I knew she'd be there because I'd been monitoring our shared calendar. What she didn't know was that I'd also been monitoring our shared credit card statements, and I'd made some strategic phone calls. The festival was held in the parking lot of the community center, with white tents and banners promising everything from life-changing smoothies to revolutionary fitness programs. I parked across the street and watched as Tessa set up her booth, wearing an outfit that probably cost more than most people made in a week. She looked stressed. Her usual Instagram smile was strained, and she kept checking her phone, the phone that still had no working charger at home, forcing her to rely on public charging stations and borrowed cables. At 2 p.m., her live shopping event was scheduled to begin. I watched as maybe 20 women gathered around her booth, phones out, ready to buy whatever she was selling. Tessa launched into her practiced routine about wellness partnerships and exclusive offers. That's when her phone started ringing. She tried to ignore the first call, but the phone kept buzzing. Then it rang again and again. "Sorry, ladies," she said with a forced laugh. "Let me just turn this off." But as she reached for her phone, I could see her face change. She was reading the caller ID, and she didn't like what she saw. The phone rang again immediately. This time she answered it, stepping away from her audience. "Hello? No, there must be some mistake." Her voice was getting louder, more panicked. "What do you mean payment declined? I have automatic payments set up." The women at her booth started looking at each other, then at Tessa, then pulling out their own phones to record what was clearly becoming a meltdown. "No, you can't cancel my account. I have a contract." Tessa was pacing now, her voice carrying across the parking lot. "What do you mean my credit card was declined? That's impossible." I recognized what was happening. The bills were coming due. Her website hosting, her social media management tools, her promotional materials, all the little expenses that kept her business running. Expenses that had been automatically charged to credit cards that no longer worked. Another call came in before she could finish the first one. Then another. "Ladies," she said, returning to her booth with a fake smile that was cracking around the edges. "I'm having some technical difficulties with my payment systems. Maybe we could—" Her phone rang again. This time she answered it without stepping away. "What? No, that's not possible. I've never missed a payment." Her voice was getting shrill. "You can't repossess my car. I have full coverage insurance." Car repossession. I hadn't expected that one, but it made sense. Tessa's BMW lease was probably set up on automatic payment from the same accounts I'd restructured. Miss a payment or two, and the repo men started making calls. The women at her booth were openly recording now, sensing that they were witnessing an influencer's public breakdown. This would be all over social media within the hour. "I need to go," Tessa announced, frantically packing up her display materials. "Family emergency. Sorry, everyone." But as she tried to leave, a man in a polo shirt approached her booth. "Excuse me, are you Tessa Whitman?" "Yes, why?" "I'm from Premier Lifestyle Products. We had a partnership agreement with you, but our payment for your promotional posts was returned by your bank. We need to discuss the terms of our contract." I can't deal with this right now." "Ma'am, you promoted our products to your followers and guaranteed certain engagement metrics. If we can't process payment for your services, we need to discuss whether you can fulfill your obligations." More people were gathering now, sensing drama. Someone had recognized her and was calling out her social media handle. Others were taking photos. Tessa looked around desperately, then spotted something that made her face go white. Logan Crouse was walking toward her booth, and he didn't look happy. "Tessa." His voice carried the kind of authority he used in his workout videos. "We need to talk, now." "Logan, not here. People are watching." "I don't care who's watching. You told me you had money. You told me you could invest in my business expansion. Now I find out your credit cards don't work?" The crowd around her booth had grown larger. Someone was live streaming the whole thing. Tessa's public humiliation was being broadcast to anyone who cared to watch. "This is a misunderstanding," she said, but her voice was shaking. "My husband is just... he's handling some account issues." "Your husband?" Logan's voice got louder. "The same husband you said was holding you back? The one you were going to leave?" A collective gasp went up from the crowd. Nothing like a public adultery confession to make suburban drama go viral. "Logan, please, not here." "Where then? Your fancy house? Oh, wait, you can't even afford gas to drive there." Tessa looked around at the crowd, at the phones recording her humiliation, at her business falling apart in real time. Then she did what influencers do when reality gets too real. She ran. She pushed through the crowd and headed for her BMW, Logan following behind her, still talking loudly about money and promises and business investments. The crowd followed them, phones out, capturing every moment of the meltdown. I watched from across the street as Tessa tried to start her car. It turned over, but didn't catch. She tried again. Nothing. On the third try, the engine made a grinding sound that meant expensive repairs. Logan was standing next to her driver's side window, gesturing angrily. Tessa was crying now, her carefully applied makeup running down her face. The crowd had formed a circle around the car, everyone recording, everyone posting, everyone sharing the spectacular downfall of a local influencer. Finally, Logan stormed off toward his own car, a flashy red Mustang that probably cost more than he could afford. He peeled out of the parking lot, leaving Tessa alone with her broken car and her ruined reputation. I started my truck and drove away. I had work to do, and Tessa's schedule had just been permanently canceled. By the time I got home that evening, the videos were everywhere. Tessa Whitman meltdown was trending locally. Her follower count was dropping by the hour, and the comments were brutal. She wasn't home yet. Probably still trying to figure out how to get her car towed without a working credit card. I made myself dinner and settled in to watch the show. My phone rang around 9 p.m. Tessa's number. "Owen, I need you to come get me." "Where are you?" "At the community center. My car won't start and I can't afford a tow truck." "Sounds like a planning problem." "Please. I know you're angry, but I'm stranded. People are still here taking pictures." I looked out the window at my truck, then at the comfortable chair where I was sitting, then at the beer in my hand. "Tessa, you told me to see you when you planned me in. Well, you're not on my schedule tonight." I hung up and turned off my phone. Let her figure it out. Let her call Logan or Maddie or one of her influencer friends. Let her learn what it felt like to need someone who wasn't available. Outside, it started to rain. A week after the festival disaster, Tessa's former friends decided to stage an intervention. Not for her, for me. They'd convinced themselves that I was the villain in this story, that I was financially abusing my wife and sabotaging her business out of jealousy. The ringleader was Maddie Brennan, Tessa's social media manager and the architect of her influencer career. Maddie had built her own following by positioning herself as a business mentor for aspiring female entrepreneurs. My destruction of Tessa's finances was threatening Maddie's brand too. They showed up at my house on Saturday morning while I was working in my garage. Maddie, along with Brent Kowalski and Carla Martinez, the core group of Tessa's social circle. They'd been our friends once, back before Tessa discovered Instagram and decided that marriage was just another brand partnership to be optimized. "Owen." Maddie stood in my driveway like she owned it, arms crossed, wearing the kind of athleisure outfit that cost more than most people's rent. "We need to talk." I looked up from the cabinet I was building. Real work. The kind that created actual value instead of social media engagement. "About what?" "About what you're doing to Tessa. This financial abuse has to stop." Financial abuse. That was rich, coming from the woman who'd taught my wife to see every relationship as a transaction and every conversation, as content. I'm not abusing anyone. I'm just not paying for my wife's affair anymore. Brent stepped forward. He was a soft-looking guy who'd built a small following reviewing craft cocktails and artisanal food products. That's not what this is about, Owen. Tessa made some mistakes, sure, but you're destroying her livelihood out of spite. Her livelihood? I set down my sandpaper and gave him my full attention. Brent, Tessa's business lost $8,000 last year. I've seen the numbers. Her livelihood is my construction job and the health insurance that comes with it. Carla, who ran a lifestyle blog focused on authentic suburban living, jumped in. You don't understand the influencer economy, Owen. Building a brand takes time. Tessa was just starting to see real growth. Real growth? I almost laughed. You mean the kind of growth where she spends $3 for every dollar she makes and calls it an investment? You're being deliberately obtuse, Maddie said. Tessa's brand was building momentum. The partnerships were getting bigger. The wellness festival was just a temporary setback. The wellness festival where she had a public breakdown because her credit cards got declined? That temporary setback? Maddie's face flushed. That happened because you sabotaged her accounts. You deliberately humiliated her in front of her audience. I didn't sabotage anything. I just stopped paying for her to cheat on me. This isn't about Logan, Brent said. This is about you punishing Tessa for being successful. That did it. I stood up, all 6'2" of me, and looked down at these 3 people who'd spent the last 2 years convincing my wife that I was holding her back. Successful? Let me tell you about success, Brent. Success is getting up at 5:30 every morning and building houses that people actually live in. Success is earning money that pays for real things like mortgages and groceries and car insurance. Success is not posing for photos with products you got for free and pretending it's a career. You don't understand, Carla started. I understand perfectly. You people turned my wife into a walking advertisement and convinced her that our marriage was bad for her brand. Well, guess what? Her brand is over. And so is our marriage. Maddie pulled out her phone. I'm recording this conversation, Owen. This kind of controlling behavior is exactly what we're talking about. Go ahead and record. Post it wherever you want. But you're standing in my driveway, on my property, lecturing me about my marriage to a woman who's been sleeping with someone else for months, so you can take your intervention and your financial abuse theories and get the hell off my property. We're not leaving until you agree to restore Tessa's access to your joint accounts, Maddie said. Then you're going to be here a long time. Brent tried a different approach. Owen, think about this rationally. Tessa made some mistakes, but marriage is about forgiveness. You can work through this. Work through this? I stepped closer to him. My wife told me to see her when she planned me in. She scheduled me like a dentist appointment. She spent my money on clothes and trips and business expenses while she was screwing some broke gym owner who thought she was his ticket to financial stability. And you want me to work through this? Relationships are complicated, Carla said. Tessa was exploring her identity as an independent woman. That doesn't mean she doesn't love you. Her identity as an independent woman was funded by my dependent man's salary. And her exploration led her to Logan Crouse's bed. So no, I don't think she loves me. I think she loved my credit limit. Maddie was still recording, probably thinking she was capturing evidence of my unreasonable behavior. What she was actually capturing was the moment I stopped caring what any of these people thought about me. Here's what's going to happen, I said, addressing all 3 of them. You're going to leave my property. Tessa is going to figure out how to support herself, like the independent woman she claims to be. And all of you are going to learn what happens when the person paying the bills decides to stop playing along with your fantasy. You can't just abandon your wife, Brent said. I'm not abandoning her. I'm just not subsidizing her anymore. There's a difference. This is financial abuse, Maddie repeated, still recording. No, Maddie. Financial abuse would be controlling her money. This is her money problem. She wants to be independent? Great. Independence means paying your own bills. What about her car, her phone, her basic needs? What about them? She's a grown woman with a college degree and a social media following. She can figure it out. Carla shook her head. You're being cruel, Owen. I'm being practical, something none of you would understand. That's when Tessa herself appeared, walking up the driveway. She looked terrible. No makeup, hair in a messy ponytail, wearing clothes that actually looked like they'd been slept in. The polished influencer image was gone, replaced by someone who looked like she'd been crying for a week. Owen, she said, her voice small and defeated. Please, can we talk, alone? I looked at her, then at her three enablers, then back at her. Sure, after your friends leave. We're not going anywhere, Maddie said. Tessa needs support right now. Tessa needs to learn how to handle her own problems, something she might have figured out if you people hadn't spent 2 years telling her that her problems were everyone else's fault. Tessa looked at her friends, then at me, then at the ground. Maybe you guys should go. Let me talk to Owen alone. Tessa, no, Maddie said. He's manipulating you. This is exactly what abusers do. They isolate their victims. I'm not a victim, Tessa said quietly. I'm tired. You're tired because he's been psychologically torturing you, Carla said. That was it. I'd had enough. Get off my property, now, all three of you, before I call the police and have you removed for trespassing. You can't, Brent started. I can, and I will. This is my house, my driveway, and my marriage. You people have done enough damage. Get out. Maddie lowered her phone, finally realizing that her recording was more likely to hurt her case than help it. This isn't over, Owen. Yes, it is. It's been over since the moment you convinced my wife that marriage was a business arrangement and I was the junior partner. They left finally, with Maddie promising to expose me on social media and Brent muttering about toxic masculinity. I watched them drive away, then turned to face my wife. Now, I said, what did you want to talk about? Tessa and I sat at our kitchen table like strangers negotiating a business deal, which, in a way, we were. The woman across from me bore little resemblance to the polished influencer who'd been promoting wellness products just a week ago. Her skin was pale, her eyes were red from crying, and she looked like she'd lost 10 pounds she couldn't afford to lose. I know you hate me, she began. I don't hate you, Tessa. I just don't know you anymore. She flinched like I'd slapped her. That's not fair. What's not fair is spending 2 years married to someone who treated me like a business expense. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. You scheduled me, Tessa. You literally put me on a calendar between your yoga classes and your content creation sessions. She was quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. I thought I was building something. A career, a brand, a future. You were building a fantasy, and you were doing it with my money while sleeping with someone else. Logan was... She stopped, shook her head. Logan was a mistake. Logan was a symptom. The disease was thinking that our marriage was just another brand partnership that you could optimize. I never thought of it that way. Then you weren't thinking at all. She looked up at me then, and I saw something I hadn't seen in months, genuine emotion instead of performed vulnerability. What do you want, Owen? What would it take to fix this? I'd been dreading this question because I already knew the answer, and I knew she wouldn't like it. I want you to get a real job. I want you to pay your own bills. I want you to delete your social media accounts and stop pretending that taking pictures of smoothies is a career. And I want you to move out. Move out? Her voice cracked. This is my home, too. This house is in my name. The mortgage is paid with my salary. You've contributed exactly $0 to our housing costs in the past 2 years. I contributed in other ways. Like what? Posting photos of our kitchen on Instagram? using our bedroom as a backdrop for fashion shoots, turning our anniversary dinner into content for your followers? She didn't have an answer for that, because we both knew it was true. Every moment of our life together had become potential content for her brand. "I can change," she said. "I can be different." "No, you can't, because you don't think you did anything wrong. You think you're the victim here." "I am a victim. You destroyed my business, my reputation, my friendships. I stopped paying for your hobby. Your reputation destroyed itself when you had a public breakdown because your credit cards didn't work. And your friendships were never real. They were networking relationships." She started crying then, the kind of ugly crying that couldn't be filtered or edited for social media. "I don't know how to do anything else, Owen. This is all I know." "Then you better learn fast, because I'm done." "What does that mean?" I pulled out a folder I'd prepared and slid it across the table. "Divorce papers. I'm filing on Monday." Her face went white. "You can't be serious." "I've never been more serious about anything in my life." She opened the folder and started reading, her hands shaking. "You're asking for the house, the cars, everything. I'm asking for what I paid for. You can keep your business assets, your camera equipment, your laptop, your ring light, all the tools of your trade. But the house, the cars, the furniture, the savings account, that's all mine. I'll fight this. I'll get a lawyer." "With what money? Your credit is destroyed, your income is zero, and your boyfriend is broke. Good luck finding a lawyer who works for Instagram followers." She stared at the papers, like they were written in a foreign language. "How did we get here, Owen? How did it get this bad?" "It got this bad when you decided that being married to me was holding back your personal brand. It got this bad when you started scheduling me like a business meeting. It got this bad when you decided that Logan Crouse was a better investment than your husband." "I never said that." "You didn't have to say it, you lived it." My phone rang, Frank Morrison's name on the screen. I answered it, keeping my eyes on Tessa. "Owen, you need to see something. Can you meet me at the job site?" "What kind of something?" "The kind that involves your wife's boyfriend and a very public meltdown. Bring a camera." I hung up and stood. "I have to go." "Owen, please, don't leave like this. We can work something out." "Tessa, you told me to see you when you planned me in. Well, you're not on my schedule anymore. You're not on anyone's schedule anymore." I left her sitting at the kitchen table with the divorce papers, crying over the ruins of her influencer empire. Outside, the sun was shining, and I had real work to do. The job site was buzzing with activity when I arrived. Frank was waiting for me with a huge grin and his phone in his hand. "Owen, you're going to love this. Your boy Logan just had his own public meltdown." He showed me his phone screen. Someone had posted a video to the local Facebook community group. Logan Crouse, standing in the parking lot of his gym, screaming at a repo man who was hooking up his red Mustang to a tow truck. "You can't take my car! I need it for my business! I'm an influencer!" The repo man, a heavy-set guy who'd clearly dealt with this before, just shrugged. "Take it up with the bank, buddy. This is illegal. I have rights." "You have the right to make your payments on time. You didn't. Now you don't have a car." Logan tried to physically stop the tow truck, grabbing onto his car like a child having a tantrum. The repo man called the police. Within minutes, Logan was in handcuffs, still screaming about his rights and his business and his influencer status. "Gets better," Frank said, scrolling to another video. This was posted an hour ago. The second video showed Logan's gym with a "closed for non-payment" notice on the door. A small crowd had gathered, including several of his clients who were demanding refunds for their prepaid personal training sessions. So he lost his car and his gym in the same day? And his apartment. My buddy who works for the property management company says they started eviction proceedings yesterday. I watched the videos again, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Satisfaction. Not because Logan was suffering, but because the universe had a way of balancing things out. He'd thought he was trading up when he started sleeping with my wife. Instead, he'd hitched his wagon to a sinking ship. "There's more," Frank said. "Check out Tessa's Instagram." I pulled out my phone and looked. Her follower count had dropped from 15,000 to less than 3,000. Her recent posts had been deleted. Her last remaining post was from 3 days ago, a generic quote about staying strong through difficult times that had exactly 12 likes. "Her brand is over," Frank observed. "Logan's brand is over, and you're free." "Not quite free yet. Still have to get through the divorce." "She's going to fight it?" "She threatened to, but with what? She has no money, no income, and no credibility. Her best option is to sign the papers and try to rebuild her life somewhere else." Frank nodded approvingly. "You played this perfectly, Owen. Took them both down without breaking a single law or throwing a single punch." "I didn't take them down. They took themselves down. I just stopped propping them up." We stood there for a moment, watching the construction crew frame another house. Real work, creating real value, building something that would last. "So what's next?" Frank asked. "Next, I finish this job. Then I start the next one. Then I go home to a house that's actually mine, and eat dinner without someone filming it for social media." Sounds like a good life. It will be. My phone buzzed with a text from Tessa. "Please come home. We need to talk." I deleted the message without responding. Her schedule had been permanently canceled, and mine was booked solid with better things. 2 weeks later, Tessa was gone. She'd signed the divorce papers without a fight, probably because she'd finally understood that fighting would cost money she didn't have. Her lawyer, a friend of Maddie's who worked for exposure and social media promotion, had taken one look at our financial records and advised immediate settlement. The house felt different without her ring lights and camera equipment cluttering every room, without the constant sound of her recording authentic lifestyle content in the kitchen, without her scheduling phone calls interrupting every conversation we tried to have. It felt peaceful. I was in my workshop on Saturday morning building a bookshelf for my bedroom when Frank stopped by with coffee and news. "Thought you'd want to know. Logan Crouse left town yesterday, packed what he could fit in a U-Haul and headed south. Word is he's going to try to restart his fitness influencer thing in Florida. Good luck to him. Florida's got plenty of broke gym bros already." "And Tessa?" "Moved in with her sister in Portland. Last I heard, she was looking for a job in marketing, real marketing, with a salary and benefits." Frank raised his coffee cup in a mock toast. "To the end of the influencer era in the Whitman household." "I'll drink to that." We worked together for a while, Frank helping me with the bookshelf while we caught up on job site gossip and local news. It felt good to have a conversation that wasn't being recorded for social media or interrupted by someone trying to create content. Around noon, my phone rang. Unknown number. "Owen Whitman." "Mr. Whitman, this is Detective Sarah Morse with the local police department. I'm calling about a complaint that was filed against you." My stomach dropped. What kind of complaint? Harassment and financial abuse. The complainant alleges that you've been stalking her social media accounts and sabotaging her business relationships. I looked at Frank, who was listening with raised eyebrows. "Who filed the complaint?" "Maddie Brennan. She says you've been creating fake accounts to leave negative comments on her business posts and that you've been contacting her clients to spread false information about her services." I almost laughed. "Detective, I don't even have social media accounts. I deleted Facebook 3 years ago and I've never had Instagram or Twitter or any of the rest of it." "Can you prove that?" "I can give you my phone, my computer, whatever you need to check. You won't find any social media activity because there isn't any." There was a pause. "Mr. Whitman, would you be willing to come down to the station to discuss this? I'd like to clear this up quickly." "Of course. When? How about now?" An hour later, I was sitting in Detective Morse's office, watching her scroll through my phone and laptop. She was a woman in her 40s with graying hair and the kind of tired expression that came from dealing with small-town drama for too long. "You're right," she said finally. "No social media accounts, no fake profiles, no evidence of any online harassment. So what's Maddie's complaint really about?" "Near as I can tell, her business is falling apart and she needs someone to blame. Apparently, several of her clients have canceled their contracts in the past 2 weeks. Let me guess. They were all friends of my ex-wife." "That would be my guess too. When one influencer's brand collapses, it tends to take down everyone associated with them." Detective Morse leaned back in her chair and studied me. "Mr. Whitman, I have to ask, did you do anything illegal during your divorce proceedings? Any hacking, any theft, any destruction of property?" "No. I stopped paying for my wife's business expenses, and I restructured our joint bank accounts to individual accounts. Everything I did was legal and within my rights as the account holder." "And you didn't sabotage her car or her phone or any of her equipment?" "Her car broke down because it's a leased BMW that wasn't being maintained properly. Her phone died because I stopped paying for the premium plan and took back the chargers I'd bought. Her equipment is fine. She took it all when she moved out." Detective Morse nodded. "That's what I figured. Ms. Brennan seems to think that financial support is a legal obligation in all relationships, not just marriages. Maddie thinks a lot of things that aren't true. It's part of her brand." "Well, there's no case here. I'll file a report saying the complaint was unfounded and recommend that Ms. Brennan focus on her own business instead of blaming other people for her problems." I left the police station feeling vindicated but not surprised. Of course, Maddie had tried to make me the villain in her story. Taking responsibility for the collapse of her influencer empire would have been bad for her brand. That evening, I was grilling dinner on my back patio when my neighbor Carla Martinez appeared at the fence between our yards. She looked uncomfortable, like someone who'd been caught spreading gossip and now had to face the consequences. "Owen, I wanted to apologize." "For what?" "For the things I said during that intervention. I was wrong about you and Tessa." I flipped my burger and waited for her to continue. "I saw the videos of Logan's meltdown, and I heard about Maddie's false police report. I'm starting to realize that maybe we didn't have the whole story. You had the story Tessa wanted you to have, the one where she was the victim and I was holding her back. Why didn't you defend yourself? When we came here that day, you could have explained about the affair, about the money problems. Would you have believed me, or would you have assumed I was lying to make myself look better?" Carla was quiet for a moment. "Probably the second one. That's why I didn't bother explaining. Sometimes the truth speaks for itself, if you give it enough time. I feel terrible about how this all played out. Tessa was my friend, but so were you. I should have stayed out of it. Carla, you got caught up in the influencer fantasy just like everyone else. It happens. The important thing is that you can see through it now. Is there anything I can do to make up for the way I treated you?" I thought about that while I finished grilling my dinner. You can stop trying to turn your life into content. You can have conversations without filming them. You can eat meals without photographing them. You can just live. She smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her in months. "That actually sounds nice." "It is nice. You should try it." After she left, I sat on my patio eating my burger and watching the sunset. No one was recording it for Instagram. No one was trying to turn it into content. It was just a sunset, beautiful and temporary and real. My phone was inside, turned off. My schedule was my own. And for the first time in 2 years, I felt like I was actually living my life instead of performing it. The next morning, I got a text from an unknown number. "Owen, this is Tessa. I wanted you to know that I got a job, marketing coordinator at a small firm in Portland. It's not glamorous, but it's honest work. Thank you for forcing me to grow up. I'm sorry for everything." I read the message twice, then deleted it. I was glad she'd found work, glad she was moving forward with her life. But her apology was 2 years too late, and her gratitude felt like one last attempt to make our story about her. I had my own story to write now, one that didn't need to be shared, liked, or optimized for engagement. I was building a life, not a brand, and it was going to be beautiful. Frank arrived at 7:30 with coffee and the news that we'd landed another big contract, a whole subdivision that would keep us busy for the next 6 months. Real work, creating real value, building homes for real families. "You ready to get back to work?" he asked. "I never stopped working," I said. "I just stopped paying for other people's fantasies." We drove to the job site together, 2 guys in work boots and hard hats, ready to build something that would last. Behind us, the sun was rising on a day that belonged entirely to us. No schedules, no appointments, no planning required, just life, happening in real time, exactly as it should.